Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Izzah binti Yasmi. My metric number is A22A0396. Today I'm going to present about my case study number 1. Malaysia GDP terminal rate to 4.2% in 2023 on ongoing external risks. GDP is important for understanding the overall condition and performance of an economy. Since Malaysia GDP is predicted rise by 4.2% in 2023, government, businesses, and investors would be better able to identify obstacles and possibilities. It was expected slowdown in a private expenditure and investment might have an impact on the government fiscal and monetary policy. The next question is about how the economic sector are important to support the economic growth. The first one is a good infrastructure development. An efficient infrastructure, including transportation, communication and electricity system, is necessary for enabling the flow of products and services. The improved efficiency, reduce expenses, and increase the economic activity. The next one is industry with a competitive manufacturing and services. A competitive manufacturing sector improves export and employment, but an effective service sector that includes finance, technology and medical care grow the economy and offer the stability. The next one is significant natural resources. Malaysia rich resources, which include tree, gas and oil, act as both a source of raw material for a variety of operation and source of income from export. Export and government income can increase with the efficient administration and utilization of these resources. To the next slide, the question 3 is about how the government can solve the economic problem occurs at a time. The first one is fiscal policy. Increasing government expenditure and taxation in order to control inflation and boost demand, reducing company taxes or giving specific subsidies to people in need, for instance, could boost the consumption. The next one is monetary policy. The government can impose monetary policy, such as changing interest rates, to influence borrowing and investment through the central bank. In this case, Bank Negara Malaysia, while bringing them up, could help in reducing inflation. Last but not least, world diplomacy. A stable international economic environment and improvement in external risks can be achieved by promoting diplomatic solutions to global issues or tension, such as the previously mentioned war between Russia and Ukraine. The last question is about two limitations of GDP measurement. Excludes non-market activity. When non-market activity like household and volunteer labour are excluded, GDP largely monitor market transaction. So, regardless of the fact that this activity have the value to society at large, individual, for example, watch children at home or perform community service, don't add to the GDP. The next one is distribution of income and life quality. GDP doesn't provide information on how money is divided or on people's general quality of life. Even while the GDP of a country may be high, it may not really measure the well-being of the whole population if money is concentrated in the hand of a small number of people, or if a social disparity is severe. Furthermore, the GDP ignores issues that may have an influence on stability over the long run, such as the shortages of resources and harm to the environment.
Good evening, my name is Isham Aziz bin Ishamshul and my metric number is A22A0911. Today I will talk about the Malaysia's private consumption could be bright spark amid dim economic outlook. For the question 1, how private consumption influences the national income? An increase in consumer spending directly increases the country's GDP. Factors driving growth in private consumption include the reopening of China's borders, high commodity and oil prices, and expected increases in disposable income. A higher consumer spending leads to increased business sales, thus fostering better production and overall economic activity. Question 2. How the private consumption will influence the aggregate supply and demand supply? First, it can influence the aggregate supply by increasing the number of branches. This expansion leads to an increase in the quantity of goods and services available in the market. Second one, it can influence by job creation and income generation. Opening new branches requires additional staff, so it will lead to job creation. With more people working, there is an increase in aggregate income. And next one, private consumption can influence the aggregate demand by a rise in consumer spending. More outlets and new entrants like Apple can attract consumers, leading to higher spending. And second one, it can influence aggregate demand by employment generation. The expansion plans of retailers indicate potential job creation. This in turn contributes to higher household incomes, which further supports private consumption. Question number 3. The government of Malaysia increases government spending on medical and educational expenses. How the economy adjusts to the change in government spending? So, when the government of Malaysia increases spending on medical and educational expenses, it can have several effects on the economy. Some of them are, first, increased aggregate demand. The direct effect of increased government spending is a boost in aggregate demand. The government allocates more funds to medical and educational sectors, creating demand for goods and services related to these areas. The second one, multiplier effect. The initial increase in government spending sets off a multiplier effect as government funds flow into the medical and educational sectors. It stimulates additional expenditures by households and businesses connected to these sectors. Third one, higher employment and income. With increased government spending, there is a rise in demand for labor in the medical and educational sectors. This in turn contributes to higher employment levels and increased income for individuals working in these areas. Fourth one, impact on suppliers and industries. The increased demand for medical and educational services can positively affect suppliers and industries related to these sectors. For instance, suppliers of medical equipment and technology may experience increased business. Fifth, potential inflationary pressures. Increasing government spending could lead to inflationary pressures if the economy is already operating at or near full capacity. Higher demand for goods and services without a corresponding increase in supply can result in rising prices. And the last one, fiscal policy impact. The government's decision to increase spending on medical and educational expenses reflects an expansionary fiscal policy. This policy is aimed at stimulating economic growth and improving social infrastructure. Question number 4. Fund the national income and disposable income. The formula of national income is net private domestic product at factor cost plus net factor income from rest of the world. First, we have to find the net private domestic product at factor cost first. The formula is net private domestic investment plus compensation of employees plus taxes on production and imports minus subsidies and minus depreciation. The result is 100 plus by compensation of employees that we didn't find yet, plus 20 minus 5 and minus 50. The calculation for compensation of employees is personal income taxes plus corporate taxes and plus social insurance payments. The result is 60 plus 45 plus 35 equal to 140. Then we substitute compensation employees into the net private domestic product at factor cost equation. So the calculation is 100 plus 140 and minus 35 and minus 50. Then we get 155 billion. And then we have to find the net factor income from rest of the world. The formula is receipts of factor income from rest of the world minus by payment of factor income from government and households. And then we get the 4 minus 5 equal to -1. Then we substitute net private domestic product at factor cost plus by net factor income from rest of the world. Then we get 155 minus 1. So the result is 154 billion. Next one, the calculation for disposable income. The formula is national income minus by personal income taxes. And we get the result is 154 minus 60 equal to 94 billion Malaysian ringgit.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad Faris bin On, matrix number A22A0874. I will now continue our presentation with case study 3, inflation creeping up in the standard of living and economic growth. For the question 1, briefly discuss the inflation situation in January and February 2023. The information supplied is vouched regarding the inflation in January and February 2023. The material mostly focus on general inflation trend, particularly concerning essential like food, transportation, healthcare, and education. It talks about the government initiative to address the cost of living issues, highlight the difficulty faced by the lower income group due to rising costs, and emphasize the significance of income growth to relieve financial pressure. A broader economic context is provided by the mention of Bank Negara projection for Malaysia's Consumer Price Index (CPI) for the upcoming year 2.8% to 3.2%, and the anticipated GDP growth for 2023 which is 4% until 5%. However, the text omits specific information regarding the inflation situation in January and February 2023. For question 2, based on your opinion, what are the initiatives of the government to help the B40 group to increase their standard of living? Number 1 is affordable housing initiative. Number 2 is subsidies and price control. Number 3 is BRIM, which is Bantuan Rakyat Satu Malaysia. Next is skills and training and employment program, and there's also health and education support. As for question 3, differentiate between short-run full capacity and long-run full employment. The short-run full capacity, the time frame is temporary or immediately perspective. The factor of production is considered fixed. The flexibility, production can be adjusted to meet demand by verifying utilization of variable factors. The economic output, it doesn't necessarily mean full employment, all resources. Long-run full employment, time frame, it represents more extended and flexible economic perspective. The factor of production can be adjusted to achieve optimal production levels. Flexibility, firm can adopt new technologies, change of the scale of production, and adjust employment level. The economic output, it represents a sustainable level of economic activity. Question 4. Using an appropriate diagram, analyze how an improvement in technology affects the equilibrium output and price of an economy. So if we take a look at the diagram, we can see the impact of advancement in technology, which is change in short-run aggregate supply, changes in output and price level, and there is also long-term equilibrium. Question 5. Using the aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply model, analyze the impact on the equilibrium output and price for each of the following. A. Increase in consumption due to the higher income. The AD curves move to the right with the rising consumption, indicating increased demand for product and serving across our price point. At new equilibrium point, the AD curve shift to the right intersect the current SRES curve. Price is also rise. For B, a higher wage rate for all workers. The higher production cost brought on by the higher wage rate caused the SRES curve to move to the left. The shift to the left suggests that companies are prepared to produce less at every price point. At new equilibrium point, the leftward shift of the SRES curve intersects with the current AD curve. C. An increase in government spending due to the implementation of expansionary fiscal policy. A rightward shift in the aggregate demand curve reflects increased demand, leading to higher output and prices at the intersection with the short-run aggregate supply curve. Business respond by increasing production, causing a temporary rise in both output and prices due to production cost impact in the short run. For the D, when tsunami destroy most of factories located along the coastline. The destruction of coastal factory caused a leftward shift in the short-run aggregate supply curve, reducing production capacity. This lead to lower output and increased price at the intersection with the aggregate demand curve. The economy faces a short-term decline in output and a rise in the price due to reduced supply of goods and service.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Nurul Syafiqah binti Muhammad A22804885. I would like to present case study 4. The title of case study 4 is Break down the issues of raising prices of goods in a prudent way. Question for number 1 is what is the inflation rate? Inflation rate is a measure of the rate at which the general level of cost for goods and service rises, causing currency purchasing power to fall. Question for number 2 is how to calculate the inflation rate. Inflation equal to CPI current year minus CPI previous year per CPI previous year times to 100%. 3.2% minus 1.9% per 1.9% times 100% equal to 68.42%. Question for number 3A. What causes inflation in the domestic market? The causes of inflation in the domestic market include increase in the price of goods and service. For example, transportation, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. Furthermore, the difficulty to obtaining raw material supplies to meet rising demand has contributed to inflation. For question B, what type of inflation happened in China and the United States? China and the United States has experienced cost push due to the worsening energy crisis since the post-pandemic. Inflation occurs when the cost of production of goods and services increase, causing consumer price to rise. For question C, briefly explain economic policy could be used and how the implementation of the policy will change a price level. Inflation can be addressed through economic policies such as fiscal and financial intervention. Fiscal policies such as tax exemption can offset the effect of inflation by reducing producer cash outflow pressure. Next, the provision of basic goods such as food and other raw materials to be purchased with affordable price. The effect can reduce the effect of the increase in the price of goods. For the last question is explain who benefit from inflation. Inflation can benefit certain categories such as borrowers by lowering the real value of debt and making loans more affordable. On the other hand, it is regarded as a problem for an economy because it can lead to a decrease in purchasing power, increase uncertainty, and reduce economic growth. High inflation rates can also be harmful to businesses and consumers, as they may find it difficult to adjust their prices and wages in response to rising costs. Question for number 5 is discuss the reason why inflation is considered to be a problem for an economy. The reason why inflation is considered to be a problem for an economy is erode purchasing power. This is the most important and most pervasive effect of inflation. A general increase in price over time reduces consumer purchasing power because of the amount of money allows for progressively less consumption. Another reason is impact lower income consumer. Lower income consumers spend a greater proportion of their income on necessities than higher income consumers. As a result, they have less of a buffer against the loss of their money caused by inflation.
Hi, my name is Nurlisa Nabiha binti Muhammad Ishaq with metric number E22A0217. I will continue with my part, which is case study 5. In this study, I will discuss about women involvement in labor force participation rate (LFPR) in Malaysia. First of all, the question asks to calculate labor force participation rate and the unemployment rate. How to find a labor force participation rate for both gender? So the formula is the total number of employed plus with unemployed divided by total civilian non-institutional population. In this study, total outside labor force is the same with the civilian non-institutional population. Alright, so based on 2012, male is 4.13% and female is 0.98%, while in the next year, male were recorded 4.25% and female is 1.11%. In 2013, male is 4.15% and female is 1.16%. So the last year, is labor force were recorded 4.17% and 1.18% respectively. Okay, next.
To determine unemployment rate is unemployment divided by total population times with 100. In 2012, male is record 2.96% and female is 3.16%. But in the next year, 2.92% for female and 3.44% for female. In 2014, male and female is record 2.67% and 3.22% respectively. And last for 2015, the unemployment rate for male is 2.92% and 3.15% for female. Let's move to the next question about the explanation about the trend of both calculation among women compared to men. Based on the unemployment rate, I can conclude here women consistently had a higher unemployment rate than men through a year. While for LFPR shows the overall trend analysis shows the labor force participation rate for women consistently lower than men, showing that here the percentage of women in labor force participation rate is smaller than men. Last but not least, the last question asks about personal opinion of what is the reason for the increasing number of female participation in labor force in Malaysia. So, in my opinion, nowadays technology is expanding in tandem with economic progress, causes a woman has a chance to participate in the field of labor. This is because economic demand for personnel depending in the academic level, such as soft skill in managing the machine and knowledge in software, so that sphere of employment is not controlled by a specific gender that is solely based on work experience. Individuals with educational expertise are equally participating in economic activities. This is in line with the latest Ministry of Education, YB Puan Fadina binti Sidik, who agreed with Malaysian Ministry of Education to form a slogan. So what is the slogan? Happy student, happy teachers, good school, and a prosperous nation. This is in line in leading educational with the country's economic sustainability.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Aisha Natasha binti Muhammad Zulfikri. My metric number is A22A0844, and for this presentation, I'll be presenting about case 6, which is tariffs affecting Australia agricultural exports. So the first question is, what kind of tariff has been imposed? The tariff imposed is an additional tariff. Additional tariff is a higher tax on imported items that allows domestically produced versions of the same goods to be delivered at a price that is less expensive. This levy has had a major impact on the quantity of fresh fruit exports from Australia to India, allowing export values to fall. So the second question is, what would be the ramifications of India slapping a tax on Australia's agricultural exports? So the first one is lower levels of export volume. The tariffs lowered the value of Australia's fresh fruit exports to India tremendously. The estimated value was $231 million from November 2016 to October 2017, but it collapsed to $124 million from November 2018 to October 2019. The second one is monetary impact. Tariffs had a major effect on the Producer Price Index or PPI for fresh fruits and melons, which involve apples, cherries, oranges, and plums. Plum prices dropped by 25.4% among fresh fruits and melon, while apple prices seem unchanged or constant, following an upward trend of successive advances. The Producer Price Index PPI declined by 10.1% in August. Third one is intervention by the government. So the Australian government interfered to offer assistance to the agriculture industry. They acquired surplus goods of approximately $83 million in fresh apples, $104 million in citrus fruits, and nearly $22 million in plums. As a result of these purchases, the Producer Price Index or PPI for fresh fruits rose to 18.4% in the fourth quarter of 2019. For the third question is, using the appropriate diagram, examine the effects of tariffs on Australian trade. How has welfare changed? So as you guys can see the diagram here, it illustrates the effect of tariffs on the economy, particularly focusing on the consumer and producer surplus. So tariffs are government-imposed charges on imported products. They are frequently used to protect domestic industries against international competition. So this diagram represents the economic concept by navigating two lines, demand and supply, which creates four different areas. So price levels are indicated on the y-axis and quantity levels are indicated on the x-axis. There are actually two price levels marked as PW, representing the world price, and PW plus tariff as the extra charge once a tariff has been implemented. The price increases to PW plus tariff when a tariff is implemented. So when consumers spend more for smaller quantities, the new consumer surplus declines. So when producer might ask for greater or higher prices with smaller sold quantities, the producer surplus will increase. However, there is a dead weight loss in the economy caused by the insufficient allocation of resources generated by fewer people using the. So the next one is in terms of welfare. India's implementation of tariffs on Australian agriculture exports has caused a decline in Australia's export values. This could negatively impact the financial situation of Australian farmers as well as the producers. Fortunately, the Australian government's purchase of surplus commodities in October 2019 managed to minimize the tariff's negative effects on Australian farmers. So the last question is question number 4, which is based on the above article, evaluate and critically analyze the benefits and drawbacks of international trade. So international trade initially helped Australia's economic growth. For example, from November 2016 to October 2017, the total value of fresh fruit exports to India was $231 million, proving the economic benefits of entering a massive and rising market. Opportunity to a wider and larger choice of goods and services help minimizing risk that come with being dependent solely on the local market and improves resilience to financial fluctuations. Surprisingly, there are certain drawbacks or disadvantages of international trade. As an instance, it may result in layoffs in certain industries, particularly in less profitable ones. It might additionally lead to ecosystem damage since governments might prioritize economic growth ahead of sustainability issues. Additionally, international trade could contribute to expanding inequalities given that certain people might benefit more than others.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nuri Afrina binti Nawazal. My entry number is A2A0915. Today I would like to present case study number 7. It's about probe into bicycle dumping abroad. Question number 1 is, what is the meaning of dumping? Dumping is a method of selling goods at a price lower on the international market than the cost of production or the local market price for the exported. This could provide foreign company an unfair edge and hurt the home sector in the nation that is importing the good. Question number 2 is suggest 2 reasons why the foreign firm dump their bicycle in Malaysia. 1. Excess production capacity. Reducing output could push local bicycle manufacturers who are losing market share and going to a reduction in workforce to reduce investment, employment, and general economic activity in the industry. This could lead to a reduction in Malaysia's overall bicycle supply. For this business, price reduction and market share losses might directly result in lesser investment, less output, and possible job losses. Number 2 is about market penetration. It's an innovative method used by international business to reach new market in other nations. By the way, there are anti-clients in the market by offering lower product price by dumping. Brand recognition can be developed. Question number 3 is about, is dumping viewed as an unfair act? Dumping is regarded as an unfair practice since it may cause harmful to worker and domestic industry. Unfair gaps happen in the business world when imported items are sold at a price below their original value. The cheap cost of dumping is more likely to result from potential distortion of fair competition and financial harm to home industry than from supply manufacturing or low quality input. Question number 4 is explain two effects of such dumping on local bicycle producer. Number 1, price undercutting and profit squeeze. Compared to the bicycles sold by Berjaya Lerun and Berjaya Cycle, the abandoned bicycles were far less expensive when they first hit the market. Lower sales price reduced the profit margin of Berjaya Lerun and Berjaya Cycle, which restrict their capacity to make investment in production, innovation, and employee wage. Companies' ability to invest in research and development is hampered by reducing pricing because they produce less revenue for them. Number 2 is production reduction. Because abandoned bikes are more affordable, buyers will be drawn to them. As a result, Berjaya Lerun and Berjaya Cycle may see a sharp drop in their market share. It may be necessary for business to cut production in order to offset the drop in revenues because decreased production frequently demand fewer workers, which could have negative social and economic effect in addition to job losses. This could result in layoff and reduction in the workforce. Question number 5. Explain any 3 measures that the Malaysia government can take eliminate dumping as I mentioned in the last paragraph. 1. Import quota. The government can limit bicycle import from China and Hong Kong, reduce deflationary pressure and protection domestic production. Adjusting the definition of bicycle import could increase costs, making them less attractive and boosting Malaysian industry demand. Number 2 is exchange rate stabilization. Exchange rate management to keep the Malaysian ringgit stable. The central bank may step in to manipulate the foreign exchange market. Additionally, it helps to prevent future depreciation, which as a result of a more costly important components would exacerbate Berjaya Lerun and Berjaya Cycle financial problem. Number 3, fiscal and monetary policy tools, subsidies and tax. Exemption for product target by the government financial incentive to Berjaya Lerun and Berjaya Cycle and domestic producer. This can assist in R&D, technology advancement, industry expansion and mitigate the cost disadvantage resulting from dumping, counteract the negative effect of dumping and encourage the industry development, technology investment and research and development.